Hello and welcome to the big picture. Several changes are being brought about in governance after the new BJP-led NDA government has taken over 3 months back. One of the key changes is the powers which has been shifted to the Prime Minister and his office. The Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, or the ACC, one of the most key committees in the Government of India, has now become the virtual exclusive domain of the Prime Minister, though the Home Minister is also a member of it. Going by other changes which have been contemplated or already implemented relating to senior officials, including their appointment, transfer, disciplinary proceedings, among other things, it is felt that the Prime Minister and his office have tightened the grip over the bureaucracy, with the ministers having lesser powers than they had in the past. We will discuss the changes in the way the administration is run and the key role being played by the Prime Minister and his office and what impact it will have on the overall performance of the bureaucracy. Also, whether such centralization of authority can improve the efficiency of the bureaucracy in particular and the government in general. To discuss this, I have with me T.S.R. Subramanian, former Cabinet Secretary, Arun Bhagat, former Director IB and Special Director of the CBI, and Sanjay Kapoor, Editor Hard News, who keeps a close watch on the bureaucracy and the PMO. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Subramanian, you have been in that key position as the Cabinet Secretary, and now the kind of changes which have been contemplated or already have been implemented as far as ACC and other things are concerned, do you think that any time in the past we have had this kind of a arrangement at the top?
Public memory is short and these things, bureaucracy, administration, governance, these are cyclical. The reality is that out of the past 68 years, for about 54 years, this has been the position. Till it changed only with the Vajpayee government and then drastically in the Manmohan Singh era. Till the 1999, the ACC always consisted of, the Prime Minister always used to be the personnel minister, number one.
Which has continued.
Which has continued. The ACC always invariably, the approval was the PM taken and then it was shown to the Home Minister and to the Minister concerned, number two. Number three, the Minister was not consulted in advance earlier because the government consciously wanted to ensure handshake distance, so to speak, between the various senior officials there. As we have seen in the Raja case and so many other cases in the past 10 years, when the secretary, when you pack from under secretary to so and so with the minister's choice, so this was deliberate. So the file used to be shown to the Home Minister because on any security grounds, if he has any second thought before the order is issued, to the minister concerned unless if he has any strong views to come back, number one. Number two, it is wrong to say Home Minister has been sidelined. Home Minister has his main interface with the states. Security, internal security, don't forget law and order is a state subject, not a central subject. He does not have the overview of the Government of India. No other single minister has the overview except the Prime Minister. So it's therefore natural, he knows the interconnection between the various ministries and therefore the postings and transfers are done here, number two. Number three, the Finance Ministry has an overview. Sometimes in the past, the Finance Minister has been a member of the ACC, sometimes not. So what has happened is a very sensible thing. Don't forget, unlike the American system of governance, where the minister chooses his own complete set of people here,
right,
where it is done, and all postings are political postings above Joint Secretary. In India, all postings are official postings and they are non-party men. And this is the kind of checks and balances we have had. So, if the quality of administration deteriorated very badly in the last 10 years, it started, quite frankly, in the previous 5 years. I think this is very good restoration of the balance. This augurs extremely well for the future.
Was this the same arrangement when between 91 and 96 and
yes.
between 96 and 98?
With minor variations.
With minor variations.
So all disciplinary control of the central government personnel was with particularly the IAS and all central services. Detailed central services will be the ministry concerned. IAS, Foreign Service with the External Affairs Ministry, with the Prime Minister in charge. Police generally entirely with the Home Minister. This has been the broad pattern.
So the police has been, Mr. Arun Bhagat, police had always been with the Home Minister. Now the police also seems to be coming under the Prime Minister. You think that's a good arrangement? as some feel that, the Home Minister is being overlooked in these matters. He has just become a rubber stamp or a post office.
Well, I wouldn't say so. I mean, Mr. Subramanian has clarified this at some length and in great detail. So it appears, that it is status quo ante has been restored. That's about all. And of course, I think there's a lot of merit in this, because there is cronyism which tends to creep in. I mean, with ministers taking people from their own states, people who speak their same language.
Of different sides, of different types.
Different types, and even to the extent of caste and subcaste, and religious denominations also.
Right.
So this certainly adds to cronyism, particularly when we know that it is not only the minister who might indulge in deviations, but it is very largely and in many occasions the family, the son-in-law, the nephews, the daughter-in-laws.
Extended family also.
Yes. So that becomes very easy. Particularly, the man is obligated to the minister for having been inducted to what is a cushy post. So I think this is this will ensure that the good people are not ignored. One, second, they are selected for their particular expertise and the knowledge of the ministry where they are put in. And I think this is definitely a good step, and it was needed very badly.
Okay, Sanjay. Sanjay, you have been closely observing the bureaucracy that at the PMO level and other level. You think that this is an arrangement which the bureaucracy will be happy about? One. Second thing is, do you think the ministers will be happy about?
Loss of power for anybody can be very discomforting. So I'm sure people who are not enjoying power as they expected would be unhappy. For example, the way the power is coagulating after it went away to the other people, shows that there are people who are losing power. For example, this is exactly the kind of arrangement one saw also in Gujarat to some extent. The politician or the ministers weren't really the ones who were enjoying power. It was distributed among secretaries. A similar kind of arrangement is being replicated in Delhi as of now. But this is not really as unusual as it is made out to be. As Mr. Subramanian and Mr. Bhagat have said earlier, that in the days of Mrs. Gandhi and subsequently after that, you had a very powerful Prime Minister office. This is the kind of primacy that the Prime Minister office acquired, had over decision making, over everything else, is sought to be restored here, but with a bit of a spin, because in those days you also had very powerful ministers. So in this present dispensation, the word that we are getting in is that the PM is dealing directly with the bureaucracy, and is the political authority which vests in the minister, in the other departments, somewhat getting devalued. Okay. So that is how it is panning out. I don't know, maybe it is work in progress, it will settle down, because you must remember that Mr. Narendra Modi worked very hard with all the promises that he has made. So he would be very conscious that the promises that he made gets delivered. And he would try to ensure that whatever glitches there might be at the level of the cutting edge level do not show up. So it could be one of those ways he's trying to do that.
Would you agree with Mr. Subramanian, Sanjay, that in the last 10 years, because of the drastic changes which had taken place in the kind of appointments being made, or in all these matters, it had deteriorated to a great extent? Would you agree with that?
I agree with him entirely, because compared to when you had a one-party rule, there was a certain kind of authority that the Prime Minister could actually exercise. But once you had the coalition government, starting from Mr. Vajpayee days right down, so you had these little islands which had been created by coalition partners, and they would decide who becomes a secretary, who becomes a joint secretary. And sometime I think the PMO was able to put up good resistance. But over the last 5 years, as we have been seeing, there had been, I think, collapse of resistance from the PMO. And in many cases, I've seen the minister waiting for the additional secretary to get promoted to become the secretary. So he would probably keep that seat open right till the point that he got promoted. There was absurd situations that we saw in many crucial ministries, which are now in the come under a cloud, and you're being investigated for acts of corruption and malfeasance.
Okay, we are now joined in by Mr. Shashank, former Foreign Secretary. Mr. Shashank, this whole changes which we have seen in the bureaucracy, the way, as some say that the Prime Minister is centralizing all the authority of decision making as far as appointments and other things are concerned. Some feel that, as before you came, Mr. Subramanian was pointing out that this kind of arrangement was always there in the past, but in the last 10 years or a little more, it has been changed. You think that reverting back to the old system or of PM having complete absolute control over the thing is a good idea?
Well, there is a question of coherence and direct answerability to the leader of the government, because bureaucracy has definitely a role to play. But if the bureaucrats are shunted around from one place to the other, or if every member of the cabinet is trying to have his own will, the final say, then it doesn't work. And that we have seen over the last several years. I mean, the NDA government, I would say that, well, they had the more important committees on security, economic affairs, etc., mostly by their own members of the BJP.
Of the BJP.
The Congress also tried to do it in the UPA 1. But I think this gradually petered out. But what is important as far as the Foreign Service is concerned, normally we have been dealing more directly with the Prime Minister's office and with our own minister, though in some ways, yes, we do get involved with the cabinet secretaries' consultation mechanisms as well as with the Department of Personnel for moving the ACC papers.
Right.
But the ACC means that the Prime Minister has to take the final call. Now, if he wants to do it more directly in the beginning, because he is a person who is very experienced.
Sorry, sir. One of the things which is being said is that now the present ACC doesn't have the administrative minister as part of the committee. Always whichever administrative committee in the case of Foreign Service, it used to be the External Affairs Minister. Now these ministers will have no say in the appointments of officers who will be working under them.
So basically, the ministers concerned would have very little knowledge, except for the foreign minister, who would know about the Foreign Service people who are working directly with him or her. But as far as the other ministers are concerned, they would have some information about the officers who have worked with them, but not with the others. It's a different matter if some minister has been there for 20, 30 years, then definitely he would have a good exposure to the bureaucracy. I think this is a very special case where there is a very experienced Prime Minister who has the experience at the state level. And he has worked very effectively. Now he wants to see, as an outsider, as to how the machinery did not work, did not deliver, because after all the bureaucracy was set up in order to provide continuity and expert advice by bringing together all the pools of knowledge within the government and outside the government. Now this has not happened. So therefore, the Prime Minister is trying this experiment a little more directly. There would be some criticism, but I think this is an experiment which we should commend.
Okay. Mr. Subramanian, the administrative minister not being part of the appointments committee, this is one thing which obviously at some point of time the ministers would not be too happy with this. But this is something which they'll have to live with at least for some more time, as long as this kind of an arrangement continues. But there is the criticism is that it is, as Sanjay also was pointing out, that it's becoming the cabinet secretary and the establishment officer of the DOPT will now become very powerful. They will be able to deal with, influence all these decisions. So there is no broad-based character to these decisions.
Well, we can't overgeneralize in this particular area. By and large, the selection of the joint secretaries from all streams is a very tough one. And those who make the cut, generally speaking, one is equal to the other. So we have had the crony capitalism, capitalists finding nexus in Delhi. We have had the bureaucratic kind of cronyism also. As Arun was saying, we have had people, the caste issues, community issues, and also the state allegiances, etc. We have had nearly every single problem in the last 10 years can be traced to the minister having a direct say. 2 secretaries refused to play ball with Raja till he found out another person who would do that. So I think the old principle was very, very clear. JS additional secretary level will not be done It's not a question of it. In fact, if the minister makes a recommendation, that person, unfortunately, today the PM has sent the message. Today, we don't want lobbying here. This is not something we are not playing for stakes for lobbying here. So the idea is, what we now want a professional placement of people. We want, like in a good corporation, it is not done by lobbying, it's based on the performance and a central professional personnel department. So the important thing is that system has come in now to be commended. The purpose of administration is not to make the minister happy through one means or the other. Next broad point is, the next broad point is, it is a huge corporation. You can be 3-4 different methods for it to function. You have to let it find its own way, so long as it delivers. I don't think we should go into the internal mechanisms within there, so long as they are clean within the constitution, etc. And as Shashank said, we've got a prime minister who knows the game. He's probably a little new to Delhi today, but he's a very quick learner. And I have discovered that everybody who has had a good inning as a chief minister has been highly successful in Delhi. And those who have not had a good innings as chief minister, because practically every administration issue here is seen in the state. You know, law and order, all public contact issues, land issues, money issues, project issues, law and order issues. These are, and except foreign affairs and defense, these are two issues which are not seen in the state government. So I think that we should leave it to him to decide.
What about the criticism that, you know, in the cabinet system of governance, all ministers are equal. The prime minister is only first among the equals. What happens to that principle?
That is from the perspective of collective responsibility.
Right.
That is not in the... See, there is clearly hierarchy. If anybody says that all ministers are equal to the prime minister, I don't think he's got his feet on the ground. Unfortunately, that's what happened 10 years earlier. For the last 10 years or so, we have seen the consequences. Till in the previous years, it has not happened. So that is nowhere to... At the top, you cannot have 6 generals running the army. There has to be only one general. There has to be only one foreign secretary running. You can't have 6 foreign secretaries running. And therefore, I don't think he is primus inter pares in terms of collective responsibility of the cabinet. But otherwise, in other words, he decides who the cabinet members are. But he is fully responsible. He is clearly above others in terms of ability to administer.
Okay, Mr. Bhagat. Mr. Bhagat, the thing is about let us come down to the issue of police officers, the police administration and things like that. There, don't you think that the Home Minister will have better understanding of men and matters when it comes to this? So when he is kept out or made just a rubber stamp, it could affect the kind of appointments being made. It could affect the administrative in the longer run.
No, I don't think so. You see, because even in postings where technically the Prime Minister doesn't come in, his views are taken. His views are taken, and I think he makes the final decision on certain crucial posts. Now, take the Commissioner of Police, Delhi, for example. That I know. The Intelligence Bureau, the CBI, all these decisions are taken finally by the Prime Minister. But there is a certain closeness between the Home Minister and the Prime Minister. All of them have been. And there are invariably any number of consultations which take place. And the views are exchanged, and then a decision is reached. So I don't think the Home Minister will be sidelined at all. You see, when Mrs. Gandhi...
The earlier, just for the sake of the viewers, to bring in some clarity, in the earlier the way of doing things was that, you know, the Home Minister would first get the Cabinet Secretary and the Establishment Officer would draw up a list. It would go to the Home Minister. Home Minister would, look at it, and then it goes to the Prime Minister, and then it gets ratified. Now it first goes to the Prime Minister. It now comes back to the Home Minister only for ratification. So
no, Mr. Subramanian has clarified that. He has said that even earlier, the decision was taken, maybe informally, by the Prime Minister. Then it was sent to the ministers for their concurrence.
Can you please
clarify
on this, Mr.
So that is what it is.
Except probably for the police. There probably the final decision will be taken by the Home Minister and then ratified by the Prime Minister. But in all other matters, probably in the case of foreign affairs, consultation with the in all other posts in JS and above, it would be the cabinet secretary would go, which is what I did for 2 years.
What did
go
you do?
directly to the PM,
Yes.
get his concurrence, and after that it is shown to the other two to see if before notification,
The other two
to
is
see
the-
if he had any other point to make before it's made public.
Other two,
That is the Home Minister
and the
Minister
concerned minister. Mr. Shashank?
Well, what I would say is that
In
Prime
the case
Minister,
of foreign service officers, especially, and other.
yeah, foreign service officers also have similar position like the police officers of the type, like the Intelligence Bureau, like the Center Police organizations, which have a lot of field offices all around. We have field offices all over the world.
Right.
Now, it is very necessary that the Prime Minister of the country is kept directly in the picture about these issues which are developing as they are, because the Foreign Secretary or
the question is not about keeping in the picture.
So it
There's no
should be
doubt
both.
you have to be kept in the picture. The question which are being asked is whether the concerned ministers should have a say in who should be holding which position or where. That is the only question now.
No, I am referring to the issues regarding, because Mr. Subramanian has already clarified as far as the bureaucracy is concerned. The issue was only about Foreign Office and the pure police.
Right.
So I am trying to say that police, defense and the foreign secretaries, they should have direct access to their own minister as well as to the Prime Minister, because they are going to give the most crucial information.
Absolutely.
And that is so important that it cannot be done through various channels, through ministers and this and that. In our case, normally the position has been that both the Prime Minister and the Minister are kept parallelly informed about all the important developments, because otherwise, if there is a delay in the Minister informing the Prime Minister, then there might be serious repercussions outside.
Okay. Sanjay?
Yeah.
Sanjay, how would you look at this? One of the things which is being said is that the Prime Minister, the centralization of authority with the Prime Minister. Another important thing is, will he be able to, Prime Minister with so many responsibilities, will he be able to really deal with it? On the other hand, people, some of the people who are in favor of this new arrangement say that it will lead to more efficiency. Do you think it will lead to more efficiency?
This hasn't been done for a long time, but we must remember that it was Narendra Modi who led this campaign. He's the only person who really matters. He's the face of the government. And he has promised a whole lot of things that he will do. He'll end policy paralysis which had gripped the government, which actually means that bureaucracy was not performing. There would be a lot of things that flow out of the fact that the bureaucracy becomes more efficient. So he's trying to do that. What is maybe disturbing for many people is that the political class, which is a major, especially the politicians who are in the government ministers, who have played some role, and they bring in a very valuable experience and also inputs from the ground, whether their point of view will be accommodated or not. What it seems at the moment is that the bureaucracy will get precedence over the politicians who are there. And if that really happens, then I'm sure it is something that would have some kind of an impact within the organization. I hear murmurs of disquiet and a bit of anger building up in the party that, they're not getting some space. These are early days, but we don't know how that, the tension that is existing between the politicians and the bureaucracy is going to really settle. Then there's another aspect which I don't know whether it's been settled, that the private secretaries that ministers wanted to really appoint, many of them have not been cleared, because I think their background checks were required. They were, what was also to be seen whether they were sons or relatives, or they had something to do with the previous government. So those tricky areas are still there. So he's walking, very, very slowly on sorting out these matters. And I'm sure if he's able to have his say, it will be a different kind of government that he's going to run compared to what the Congress was running in the last term.
Okay. Mr. Subramanian, the same question. The question of time, simply the time required to deal with all these issues at the Prime Minister's level. You think, would actually this argument that it would improve efficiency, would it work out, considering the fact that there will be huge amount of work which will now be before the Prime Minister?
I think 2 quick points. Internal party management is important, but I think people outside should leave it to the party itself to decide how best to keep people happy. I'm sure it will be.
As a bureaucrat, you are quite happy that it is going to be a more bureaucrat.
I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not a bureaucrat.
No.
I'm not, for the last 20 years, I've not been a bureaucrat, so please, I'm not a bureaucrat, number one. On private secretary, one quick point, I'll go back. On private secretaries, they became the conduits for power by the minister. And the role that they played for the last particularly 10 to 15 years has been quite negative. I think it's very, and till 1997, great care was taken that only those on the offer list eligible to be in the 3-4 conditions are imposed, and they should not be from the same state as the minister. We found having people who are private secretaries in the state coming here as private secretaries here, and therefore, shall we say, the scope for opening on these 2 points. I think the last point that you made was, I don't think
the pressure of work.
I don't think it's the issue of bureaucrat being happy, a politician being happy. Here, the purpose of the Prime Minister, the purpose of the cabinet, the purpose of the bureaucracy in Delhi is to deliver for the people of India. We are talking about 500, 600 people when the interest of 120 crores is involved. The question is this, don't forget, there are 2 kinds of expertise coming here. The bureaucrat brings professional management experience over time. The politician brings the political support, public feeling, etc., and the clout to see the going. So they have to combine.
They have to combine. They have to work together.
So it is really a chemistry. The PM is really, what he is today doing is to get the various moving places in place now. He is preparing for the battle. I expect that really the guns will start firing 6 months from today. Today, all the battleships are getting into position today. I think this is part of that.
Mr. Bhagat?
You see, I would just like to go back. The Home Minister was in charge of the Department of Personnel.
Right.
It was only, I think, in the time of the emergency when it was separated and brought directly under the Prime Minister. And I think Om Mehta, if I'm not mistaken, was the first Minister of State for Personnel. And since then, it has continued. And if I remember reading an article on China, and in that it was mentioned that this was one of the criterions which Mr. Subramanian mentioned, that the private staff would not be from the particular province or the city, because it's mostly the city political workers and leaders who come to the center, will not come from there. And there were I read also there were 6 or 7 conditions. So this problem of cronyism, and particularly if a joint secretary comes in at the behest of the minister, his loyalty will be totally to him. So where does his objectivity go? You know, you put him in a testing time right from the very beginning, because he gets the job particularly because of the minister. So he owes him something.
Okay.
And that, I think, is a negative beginning.
Mr. Shashank, quick last
Well,
words.
I will just like to say that several countries' leaders pointed it out to our prime ministers in the past. I will not name the prime ministers. They said, look, it's so strange that you promise something at the head of government level and your ministers don't agree with you. So those things are not implemented within your country. Though they are good for you, you have accepted as the leader of the government, leader of the parties. So this is the situation which should never happen. India in this globalized world in the next 15 years will be one of the number 3. First, second, third, one of these 3 positions in the world. Are we ready for that or not?
After 15 years. First, not third.
No, I'm just
Okay, on that positive and very upbeat note which Mr. Subramanian has struck, we will end this program. But the fact is that we'll have to wait and watch how this new system, which has been reintroduced as Mr. Subramanian states, but this is a completely different era. The ministries have grown, the country has grown. We will have to wait and watch how effective this new system will be. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. T.S.R. Subramanian, Arun, Bhagat, Shashank and Sanjay Kapoor. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in Big Picture, same time tomorrow.